to overtime.
Dwayne Wade right at the body of Anderson Varejao. Welcome to your Kodak moment, Anderson Varejao.
Doncic pulls up, three-pointer. Bang! Bang! It's good! Doncic wins the game at the buzzer!
But with that being said, I want to, before we move on to any of the other games this weekend, I just want to talk about the absolute failure of the 2019 quarterback class. Of course, Kyler Murray is insane. He's not a part of this conversation. But Daniel Jones at 6, Dwayne Haskins at 15, I believe. Drew Lock at 36 the next in the second round. And then outside of that, you have a lot of nothing. And then Gardner Minshew in the 6th round. So there's stuff there. But, you know, Dwayne Haskins has already been benched and is no longer a starter. Who knows if he'll get his second chance? I hope he does, but, you know, who knows? Daniel Jones is being a conservative quarterback and not even making and still giving the ball away a ton, which the only reason you want a conservative quarterback is for you to never give the ball away. It's what Ryan Tannehill is doing with, you know, crazy passer ratings because he just doesn't do anything stupid and never really does anything super risky. Then Drew Lock, you know, plays super aggressive and gives the ball away a ton, which is, you know, if you're playing aggressive, you're going to be doing that. But even then, he just threw 2 picks against the Chiefs and got them absolutely blown out. So, and then you have Gardner Minshew, who has next to no arm strength. He's like a late career Drew Brees without everything that made Drew Brees super special. He's still a good quarterback, but he's not anything close to great. He's a fun player to watch. He's just not going to get you anywhere. And I think at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for in a quarterback, which is why I think every team is going to try to move off their quarterback here. Be it, you know, there's 3 early first round quarterbacks, in my opinion, being obviously Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance is a bit of a question mark there, but people will take flyers on talent. And the Jags, especially, trying to be, you know, trying to tank this year. Who knows if that's actually true, but trying to be bad. If they're going to miss out on Trevor Lawrence, look, they got to go with someone. And if they're not in the top 5, if they can't get Justin Fields, they're going to have to fill in at quarterback. And if not, you know, props to them for sticking with Minshew. It just makes the 1-year tank an absolute failure for a generational talent. And that's what I think both Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence are. Trevor Lawrence is an incredibly smart quarterback with a rocket arm. It's practical in the way it's used. He uses his arm to fit balls into small windows. He doesn't just use it to get the ball there without any type of touch. No, he has both. On the other side of that, Justin Fields is an incredibly good quarterback off script, which is a huge strength. Look, a coach can teach you what to do on script and where to put the ball on script, but when everything goes, excuse my language, if everything goes to shit, it's up to you to figure it out. You're the guy on the field who makes stuff happen, which is why I love Justin Fields so much. My hope is Justin Fields ends up as a New York Giant. I am out on Daniel Jones, but we don't have to talk about that as is. What I do want to talk about is how did these players all end up so miserable? Dwayne Haskins threw for 50 touchdowns in his first year in that system, immediately declared for the draft, was not, you know, you can't say he was necessarily pro-ready. Even, you know, Ohio State coaches wanted him to stay for another year just to figure it out. He clearly didn't, and he went to Washington, which is, you know, the worst place he can go. He had an awful offensive line, nothing to work with there. Then he had, you know, he had Terry McLaurin and nothing else to work with on the offensive end as far as weapons go, outside of, you know, Steven Sims, who we're still questioning whether he's a real guy, or a 35-year-old 35-year-old Adrian Peterson. It's not a lot to work with, so I don't blame Dwayne Haskins. But then again, he got benched, whatever it was, 3 games into his second year. For Kyle Allen at that. Kyle Allen was also a rookie that same year, but, you know, let's not drag him into this conversation. Daniel Jones, incredibly inconsistent. That's the biggest thing. He does not fit. So he was drafted because he fit Patrick Shermer's offense, and then they fired Patrick Shermer, and now he's just regressed horribly. I understand he doesn't have a lot to work with on the offensive end, but with some players, in order for them to win, you're going to have to build a great, great overall team around them. Look at what the Titans have done with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Again, they have a very good running back, although I don't think he's anything special. We can have this conversation over and over again with Derrick Henry, but their defensive line is incredible. Their safety set with Kenny Vaccaro and Kevin Byard, great group. Their offensive line before the Taylor Lewan injury and the Jack Conklin being signed away in free agency, those were great, were incredibly well built. And then I think Isaiah Wilson still has a chance to replace Conklin. It's just an incredibly well built team. AJ Brown is a great wide receiver. He just doesn't get the respect he deserves for some reason. And then Corey Davis is not a bad number 2. Jonnu Smith is also a very good pass-catching tight end and is an incredible red zone threat for this team. So it's a really well-built roster from top to bottom. Malcolm Butler is playing well, not great, but well. So you just have, again, a well-built roster top to bottom. And you could say that quarterback is one of their bigger weaknesses. And because, say what you will about Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's not anything insane. He's very good, but he's not anything insane. I feel the same way about Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is not going to take a bad team and make them good. He'll take a good team and make them better. He's a game manager by every sense of the word, but he's a game manager that does so very well. That's my issue there, because you're going to have to build a great team overall around Daniel Jones, and the Giants are not going to be the team to do that. I think genuinely, I'm again Justin Fields to New York Giants talk. But it just doesn't make sense to keep a player where they're going to, you give Justin Fields a bad team and he will make them good. And you give him a good team that he'll make them great. You give Daniel Jones a bad team, they'll stay bad. You give Daniel Jones a good team, they'll get better. That's my issue. A good team can go far, but it ultimately comes down to how good your quarterback is more often than not. The exception being Deshaun Watson this year, who's leading the NFL in many major statistics and is still, 1-5 because Bill O'Brien decided to trade 2 first-round picks for a decent offensive tackle, who he then gave an obscene amount of money. But we don't have to talk about Deshaun Watson. I think playing off script and playing well when not everything is going your way are incredibly important skills, and Daniel Jones just doesn't have that. Dwayne Haskins didn't even play particularly well when things were going well for him, like when stuff was working out and he just had to throw to the guy that was open. Drew Lock, they have so many options on offense. They just haven't been able to stay healthy. Dalton Reisner is out now. Drew Lock, of course, missed three or 4 weeks, probably even more, but hasn't looked particularly insane. It's worrisome is all I can say. This draft class, as far as quarterbacks go, has been awful. It leaves openings. So where does Sam Darnold go? Where does Daniel Jones go? Potentially, where does Drew Lock go? Although I don't think the Broncos are going to be bad enough for them to drop Drew Lock. If he's awful for the rest of the year and they're like, all right, this isn't the option. This isn't what we need. Maybe they'll be bad enough for Trey Lance. I doubt it with how many horrible teams are really going to be in the market for a quarterback. But maybe they end up taking a flyer on Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones or one of them. Who knows? It makes me a little sad because ideally every player would succeed. But that's just not how it works. And I'm glad Dave Gettleman is no longer going to be with the Giants, but I feel bad for Dwayne Haskins for being drafted wasn't it Jay Gruden that drafted him? Or Dan Snyder drafted him and Jay Gruden absolutely hated him. Or Bruce Allen or whoever it was. And the coach just didn't want to play him, so he threw him in to make him look bad. And he just kind of didn't recover from that. My issue is, the stories of him not being able to learn the playbook and bragging about his own stats in the locker room. But even then, I feel like he didn't get a proper chance, and that makes me a little sad. But, Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins, what went wrong? And that's I don't have an answer there, but I think it's an interesting thing to keep track of.